Welcome to Be a Voice. This is Brit Carpenter on Usla Media. Thank you for joining me today. Today, my show is pretty special because I am going to sit down and talk with a young lady that I met a few years ago online who is a remarkable photographer who has taken her skills for photography and her passion for exploring into a van that she and her boyfriend have custom made and have been traveling the country and living in and documenting. Today, my guest is Felicia Fullwood. Hey, Felicia.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going
Thank
great.
you for
How are
having me.
you? Thanks for
Oh,
joining me.
awesome.
I'm really excited.
Yeah.
I was, excuse me, when I was thinking about asking you, I was like, she's gonna think I'm crazy, but I really enjoy number one what you do, what you're doing,
Thank you.
your attitude towards it. But let's start from the beginning. Who the hell is Felicia Fullwood?
Oh, what a question is that, man? Well, I am
Cliff Notes.
a yeah, exactly. The short story is I'm a photographer, outdoor adventure photographer who just recently bought a van. You kind of summed it up pretty well. And my boyfriend Andrew and I have been traveling the country for the past like 3 months. We're back in Metro Detroit area right now. And we're just kind of trying to make a plan for what's next. But I'm a full-time photographer and I do freelance work as well as like social media stuff. Um, yeah, and we just basically love to be outside. Any kind of adventure I can find myself in. I obviously started in the urban exploring community, doing like abandoned buildings and rooftoping, and that kind of evolved into more travel stuff around Michigan as I figured out how beautiful my state is, not just Detroit. And yeah, it's kind of been that ever since.
So you're born and raised in Detroit.
Just like, and this is like such a funny thing about Detroit. Literally, it was born in Warren, so a mile north of the Detroit city borders. So that's kind of like a thing. Everyone's like, "You're not really from Detroit if you're not from Detroit." But I always say Metro Detroit because if we leave Michigan, nobody knows where like Warren or Fraser, Michigan is. So I'm just like, "Oh, I'm right outside of Detroit." But no, my boyfriend and I lived, which is Andrew. I'm going to refer to him as Andrew instead of my boyfriend now, just so everybody knows. We lived in Detroit city limits, right across the street from Belle Isle, right on Jefferson, for like 3.5 years, and we moved out during COVID, wanting to buy a house, and then the housing market kind of took a tumble, and so instead we bought a house on wheels, and that's been what we've been up to since then.
Which is cool. I mean, that sort of came out of nowhere. All of a sudden you're posting about a van, and we're going to talk about that. But I had a
For
friend on
sure.
the show last week, and she's a DJ, and she's on air, but she's from Detroit. And I said to
Oh,
her,
nice.
"Yeah, she's born and raised. Um, how do
Awesome.
you feel when people call it Detroit?"
That's how everybody calls it, and it makes me feel a lot of people don't like it. I love it. It's like the way the world sees Detroit. Like, and you can kind of I love the way they emphasize the D, Detroit. And it's almost like an accent in a way, when out of towners say it. But there's a lot of people from Detroit that say Detroit
Well,
as
I say
well.
it. It's almost like
So,
this Kiss song, Detroit Rock City.
yep,
It's not
yep,
Detroit.
exactly.
So,
Yep,
so you
exactly.
don't get
Although that's
offended
how I
or
say it. No,
no.
no, never. No, definitely
Nice.
not. I mean, it's however people want to say it. When people if people are talking about Detroit, it's usually, and at least nowadays it's usually good things compared to 5 or 6 years ago. We were just like the abandoned capital of the world. So I'm glad we've kind of moved on from that. Like, we went down to the city last night actually for the first time in 6 months since we've been back from the trip, and there's a new building in the skyline, and it's just crazy how much has changed. I just remember looking at the city like, I cannot believe how much has changed in just like 5 years, which is a good thing.
I've only ever
But
been there one time. I have a friend that lives
really,
in Livonia.
okay, yep, yep.
Livonia?
I know just where that's at.
I
Yeah,
don't know if
yep.
he's there anymore. Because now he owns like a golf resort. Anyway,
Oh,
yeah, pretty cool.
cool.
But I was there one time and I got in the wrong lane. and turned right.
To Canada.
And I hit the bridge.
Yep. Oh man, that's rough. Yeah, I've never done that, but
It doesn't happen too
you're
often,
probably not the first
apparently.
one.
They got a big kick of it across the bridge when I was like, no. And they were
That's
like, it happens.
hilarious.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But it's a
definitely,
great city.
definitely.
Has some great
Oh
art.
yeah.
So, Felicia, you're a photographer. How did you get into photography?
The abandoned buildings. I worked downtown full time at a health insurance company. I did pharmacy insurance, like approvals and stuff, which was a horribly stressful job. But on my breaks, I would just kind of walk around downtown. And this was back in 2014 when the city was in a completely different state. There was like graffiti all over downtown, even on like most of the skyscrapers were still abandoned. Like I would say 5 out of the 6 in the city were completely abandoned, and you could just walk in and go to the rooftops. And the Packard plant, I'm sure you're familiar with that. It's like one of the most popular abandoned places in the world, I would say. It's like 80 acres of abandoned car factory. Long story short, I went there for the first time, which is kind of the most iconic place in Detroit. And I just went with a cell phone and I was blown away. Took a bunch of pictures with my cell phone. Then we went up on a rooftop at night and my friend had a camera and took a long exposure photo of me like standing on the ledge. And I was like, oh my gosh, we need to get a camera because my phone can't take pictures like this. And literally went to Best Buy the next day, bought a camera, and that was pretty much it. I figured out how to use it by just trial and error with friends and YouTube, and just kept trying until my pictures started looking good. And yeah, I mean, it was pretty much that's how I got into it. And then I started doing way more urban exploring. I met the whole community in Detroit, which was pretty big at the time. And we just went full sprint to like every single abandoned building or not like place in Detroit that you could explore. We pretty much went in it. So
Urban
that's how I
exploring
got into it.
urban exploring was really popular. I mean, it's still popular, but it was really popular about 6, 7 years ago. It was the height of
Yep.
urban exploring. The rooftops, stuff like that. You said there was a picture in the rooftops. So you're not afraid of heights?
I I wouldn't no. I would say I'm not afraid of heights. However, my I know my limits, and back then I was fearless and I kind of didn't I was running off of adrenaline and I didn't really think twice about anything. Where like now we'll be on the side of a mountain and like a gust of wind comes. We were in Utah not too long ago, and my friend was like standing on the ledge walking and getting these cool shots, and I'm like, I don't know, it's pretty windy. I don't think I can go out there. And I went to and I like held onto the rock. I felt like a grandma. I'm like, dude, did I age myself this fast? Like I used to love doing this stuff, but I think I just realized that if there's any type of risk or I like, it's just not worth it, for a photo. And back then it was more, I was just learning what I like. Photography was really my first passion before, as an adult. Like my only other passion in life was sports. I played hockey for like 12 years, and that was pretty much my entire life for photography. And then I kind of had a period between like 18 and 24 where I just was like partying, drinking, doing whatever my friends were doing because that's what you do when you're that age.
18 to
And I
24?
was just,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And I just remember having no passion, no guidance. I went to college, but I got a full time job making more than I would have if I finished school. So I just like, yeah, I don't know. And that happened. I found photography right in the middle of that job. And then eventually I was able to make enough money doing photography like 3 years into it that I quit my job in 2017. And I have been doing it full time since then. But yeah,
That's pretty cool. And as you're talking about this, I remember we were first connected online through a community group, through Brave Straps. Uh,
right,
and
right. Yeah, okay.
exactly how we were connected. And I remember
Yes.
you were working. Yeah, this is where my mind goes back. And I remember you were
I love
working,
it though.
and then all of a sudden I just remember you weren't, and you were out pursuing your passion. How scary was that?
That was definitely scary, but I will say though, I was so confident in not in my abilities, but like in not needing a regular job and like the fact that I could get a regular job like that. I could always go back to that as like a safe, resort, I guess, last resort. But I didn't have like a plan. I didn't save up a bunch of money beforehand. I kind of just had this moment where I was sitting at my desk at my job and a helicopter company called, reached out to me and wanted me to come like full time to go on like a 2 week trip where they would like take me all around places in Michigan to photograph out of a helicopter. And it was like the dream, like a dream job, basically. Like, would have been insane money compared to what I was making there. However, I just was like, I can't get the time off work. And they were like, oh, sorry, like we need to move fast. Like if anything changes, let us know. And like the next day I emailed them like, hey, I'm going to quit my job. Like I just need 2 weeks. And they're like, I'm sorry. Like we've already went with someone else. And I'm like, are you kidding me? So that moment was like, I'm not letting another one of those slip. And I just walked up to my manager, and she knew because everybody knew. I was like shooting weddings for everybody at the company. I was doing a lot more with photography at that point, and it just didn't really make sense to spend my time 40 hours a week working for somebody else. And once I was able to supplement the income and make it make sense, I just said, it's now or never. I have to try this or I will never know. You know what I mean?
That's awesome. I mean, a lot of people are afraid to take
Yeah.
that risk. That's a risk.
For sure, for sure. I mean, I'm also in a blessed situation where I don't have any kids or people relying on me or any, real responsibilities besides myself. And I'm pretty frugal, so I don't need a ton of money. Um, so yeah, we've been doing great. And so far, since like COVID, since 2020, also Andrew hasn't been working. We've been just full time, both doing content creation and just kind of doing it together. And so far, it's working. But we definitely need to like level it up a little bit and figure out a way so we can buy a house. That's the last thing on my to-do list, is to get us a permanent homestead. Like right now, I'm at my mom's house just because it's easier when we're back at home, to not be renting when we're gone for half of the year anyways.
Hmm.
So we're still
Makes
trying to figure
sense.
that part out. Trying to prove income when you're self-employed is tough. So anybody that has been there or has tried to do that, I'm sure can agree with me. So
It's really
we
hard
got
to make
maybe a
up your
year
own
or two of,
1099, you know?
yeah, exactly. I mean, I have an accountant that does all that for me, but he's so good at what he does that sometimes I don't pay enough tax to be able to show income to buy a house. And when
Right.
you're self-employed, they want way more than other people. I also still have a little bit of student loan debt that I'm finishing paying off. So once all that's done, I think we'll have a better shot. But that's my kind of goal right now, is to figure out a way to get us a permanent homestead so that we can continue to travel and not have to worry about, what we're going to do in 5 years when maybe we don't want to live in a van full time.
And let's talk about that because, you talked about those age groups, 18 to 24. It's those ages where people really just like are finding themselves, enjoying life, sort of saying fuck it. And that
Yep, trying to
25
figure it
years of
out.
age, it's like, I got to sort of figure it out. I've got
Hmm.
to grow up a little bit. So, and you've been
Yep.
there. What was that moment then that said, you know what? Fuck it all. I'm taking a van and we're going across the country.
The
Because that
moment
would have
was
been
when
an
I got
18 to
denied
24.
for, yeah, that's, and I kind of see myself as a late bloomer in that respect. Like I didn't really, like at 25 is when I found a camera and really found my passion and became like confident and really started like enjoying life. And I don't mean that to say that, 18 to 24 was completely miserable, but I just was floating through life, like with no passion or any, no direction, no purpose. I think purpose is the big thing. I felt like, what the heck am I doing? Like I was going to school for
Mm.
social work because I wanted to try to help people, and then I got like caught up in the wrong jobs that were not helping people, and it was just like a nightmare. And I'm like, man, I don't know what I'm doing with my life. And that's right when I found photography. And I swear that the world just like serendipitously works in a way that it brings you stuff like that when you really need it, when you're like at rock bottom. I didn't know I was at rock bottom because it was like, I'm just doing what everyone else is doing. But looking back at my perception of life and my values, and just everything changed when I found a camera and found like true purpose in my life, I guess. And yeah, that happened right at 25. And that's also right when I met Andrew. And I was talking to a friend last night that he is single. And, I'm so lucky that Andrew and I have this like relationship where we met when I was 25, and now it's almost 7 years later. And we were able to kind of grow together, both in my career. Like he was with me when I worked, and then he watched me quit my job. And then we were able to get him to not go back to work. So it's been like this slow, steady progress, but it's been awesome to have somebody to share it with and kind of like, in a way, grow up together as an adult. Cause obviously at 25, you're already grown up, but like, you really start learning those life lessons, as well as like I lost, family members, my family's getting older, all of those things we're going through together, which is awesome. Where my friend was like, yeah, it sucks being single and not having anybody. Like, I'm so jealous that you guys were able to grow into all of this together. And I'm like, I never really thought about that. I am super grateful for that. So,
It's it's difficult to like find somebody that you enjoy spending time with, let alone enjoy
mhm.
spending all your time with. Because you and
Yeah,
Andrew were
especially
thrust into that.
pretty much. Yep. Yeah. I mean, we did date for like a year where he lived about an hour away. But then I got a studio, a photography studio in Detroit for $400 a month in this like janky building just because it was cheap. And we kind of like lived out of there for like a year before we decided to get an apartment. And yeah, we have not looked back ever since. And it's crazy because I was the most independent person. Never thought I would, like, I was single for 10 years before I met Andrew. And I just was always so content and happy being like alone that I never thought I would like find somebody I want to spend, like you said, almost 24/7 with,
Yeah.
especially since we both work from home and do things, at home now, let alone be with somebody 3 months straight in a 100 square foot box with really the only separation we got is if we went for a walk at the end of the night, like without each other on the beach, or when we went to the grocery store or the bathroom. That was pretty much the only time we were separated. And I have to say, I'm proud of ourselves. We did incredible. We obviously had our bicker, our little tiny fights and stuff, but I it could have been a lot worse. And I've heard, well, obviously there's horror stories in the news from, couples being in vans together, but no, I could not have imagined doing it with anybody else or trying to do it alone. Like I said, the whole trip was the fact of having somebody to share it with. That's kind of, we worked to this point together and we were able to make it happen together. And I don't think it would have been as enjoyable or as meaningful if I was just by myself.
You talked about, you were working at the insurance company, right?
Hmm.
You
Yep.
left because you weren't really finding your passion.
No,
And you
definitely
talked
not.
you mentioned passion a few times as we were talking. And you found that passion in photography. It almost like gave you a new life. Or you became
Definitely.
a new Felicia. I,
Yeah.
or the
I
Felicia you
think
didn't
I
know.
exactly. I would say I like found my true self and like what I was finally confident in myself, and not like I wasn't confident before, but again, I just didn't feel like I had anything to offer the world. And not like I feel like, photography really does anything crazy, but it just gives me like a sense of purpose so that I feel like I know what I'm doing and what my purpose in life is. And every single day I have some type of goal to work towards versus before I was just like going to work to make money and then coming home and then doing it again until I retire, which like, but I will say again, this conversation I had with my friend last night, we were both talking about how sometimes I really wish I could just have a job where at the end of the day, at 5 o'clock, you turn the lights off, you close the door, and you're done for the weekend. Where I will say to Andrew so many times, I'll spend all day working, and then I'm like, okay, I'm done for the entire night. Let's have dinner. Let's just like relax. And then bam, I get an email and everything changes. You know what I mean? And I can't turn it off. And that part of self employment is definitely something that I envy people that do have a normal job and they can just turn it off. But that's the double-edged sword of self-employment, is there's always something you can do, especially for like an ambitious person that wants to take advantage of everything possible. It's like you're trying to do everything and you got to figure out where to land and focus your time, which is I'm still learning to do.
So where did the concept of the van come in? What was that aha moment? I know you talked about your studio, but come on, a
Hmm.
van? Like, how'd
Yeah.
that come about?
Well, we basically, I kind of went during the pandemic and the lockdown and all of that here. I went from being a complete like city person to then finding my love for camping as like an adult. So I didn't really do much camping as a kid. My first time was when I was like 27. Andrew and I went camping in a just in a tent with our SUV, and we went to the middle of the Upper Peninsula, which is like there's a bridge that separates the two peninsulas in Michigan, and it's basically just this like up north paradise. There's not a lot of stuff. There are cities, but it's mostly wilderness, and it's just incredible. And we fell in love with camping, And then one night, my friend was like, "Yeah, I just sleep in my car." And I'm like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "Yeah, I just pull the seats down and we just sleep in the car." And I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna try that." And so we did that. And I remember like the realization moment in my car that I was like, I know that no matter what happens, if I become homeless, like I love this. Like I could do this for fun, like So we built this whole little SUV setup, bed platform, like a kitchen and a drawer with my 92-year-old grandpa, which we documented that on YouTube, and that did awesome on YouTube. Actually, the
That's
people loved
awesome.
that.
Wait, your 92-year-old
Yeah.
grandfather
Mhm.
helped you with the van?
Mhm. Yes. Well, no, with our SUV
Oh, the
platform, but
SUV.
he
I'm
did help
sorry.
us with the van as well. Yeah,
Okay.
this was like during the lockdown. He had nothing to do, and he is like so crafty. And I mean, he did most of the work. I was assuming he was going to show us what to do, but he's so stubborn. He's an old Italian, straight from Italy, and he's like, "No, no, no, I will do it." And the videos on YouTube you can watch. I was trying to argue with him, like, "Let me do it," and he's like, "No, no, if it's going to be done, we have to do it right. If I have to tell you, it's going to take more time." He's so cute, but long story short, we did that with the SUV for quite a while, and then Andrew's 6 foot, too, so he can barely sit up straight. We couldn't really in the SUV setup. We were just laying down all the time. So if it was raining or anything like that, we couldn't comfortably relax in the vehicle. So we
Mm-hmm.
had to like have a tarp or something like that. We were basically just car camping, but outside we'd have to like shift everything around. There was just not a lot of room. It definitely worked. Um, so that we were, I've always wanted a van after finding my love for like car camping, and obviously everybody wants a van if they could. Why not? Why wouldn't you want a vehicle that you can go travel the world with? But the deciding factor really was when in 2021 we went to buy a house, and just the amount that I was approved for what you can get in the Metro Detroit area, we just didn't have any luck at all. And I just could not get approved for more no matter what I did. I'd have to wait another year or two for more tax returns to come in. So we just decided to buy a van instead because I'm like, look, we've been at my mom's house since 2020, like on and off. We've been traveling for most of the past few years, so we haven't been here the whole time, but this is the home base that we've used. And don't get me wrong, I love my mom, I love my family, but I'm 30 years old. I don't want to be at my mom's house forever. So I said, we got to figure out something. I don't really want to rent because we're going to be gone so long. So why not buy a van that we could build? And we bought a cheap van. We paid 10,000 cash for it, and we were able to do the build for like $3,000. So all in, I mean, we spent like 13,000. That's not including repairs and stuff. So we did spend probably more than that. However, it's a lot cheaper than the way that most people do it. You'd spend $100,000 to have a Sprinter van and living down by the river, where we have a reliable vehicle. We drove it all the way across the country, 3 months, and all we had to do was replace our alternator, which was kind of our fault based on the way we have our power set up. And that was $100, and we got someone in Washington to replace it in the parking lot of the auto parts store for free.
Get
We wouldn't
out.
accept any money. Like, the people out west are just so nice, and we encountered so many incredible people that helped us on our trip, and yeah. But point being, we bought the van in 2021 February, and we used it for like a year straight. We had the seat belts and everything still in it. We just took out the seats and used the bed platform from our SUV and stuck it in there. We used that for like a year and a half, kind of just figuring out what we wanted, going on like 2 to 3 week trips at a time. And then last winter, um, I finally had a gap in my jobs where I was able to have like a 4 or 5 month period where we could just take off for a little bit. So I said to Andrew, I said, look, do we want to go with it like this, or do we want to try to build it out a little bit and have some more storage? And he's like, let's try to build it out. And I have to say, he did everything himself pretty much. I helped with a few things like staining and stuff, but he spearheaded all of the building. He built the pretty much the whole van in about 3 weeks. I mean, you hear of people taking like years to build their vans, and we did do a very, very simple setup, and soon that video will be out on YouTube for people to watch. I'm working on that right now. And yeah, I mean, we just literally, he was working up until the day we left for the trip. We had to return an inverter and change our power setup literally the day before we left, but then we just took off, and like March 18th, I think, was the day that we left, and we got back at like the very end of May. And really, we only came back because I got a couple jobs back here that for kind of too good to say no to. So we came back for some opportunities there, and yeah, we're trying to figure out what we're doing next. If we're going to stay in Michigan for the remainder of the year, if we're going to go back out west again.
That's awesome. So, what kind of van is this? Like a F one
It's
fifty
a
or
it's
E
it's a Ford Econoline E150.
E one
So it's a
fifty?
passenger van. Yep,
Okay,
yep,
like the 12 passenger,
yeah.
15 or 12.
It's just a regular wheelbase. It's not extended or anything like that. I think
Okay,
it could probably fit 12, though. It had three rows of seats. When we bought it, it only had two. We removed those, so it can fit in a regular parking space. Like when we went to California, for instance, we just parked on the street, like in front of like $3 million homes, because there was camper vans everywhere parked on the street. However, they have a height restriction where you can only be 9 feet tall and I think it's 20 feet long or something. I can't remember the exact numbers. And we were just able to fit in. We were like an inch under both of those restrictions. So we stayed in California in the LA area, right in Venice Beach, for like a week and a half, completely free, just parking on the street. So that is a huge reason why we didn't go with like a big Sprinter. That and the fact that we've already been stuck twice in our normal sized van. So if we were in a huge van, we got stuck on the side of a logging road in Oregon and had to get towed out. And we also got stuck here in Michigan in some sand. So yeah, I'm definitely glad we went with the cheaper van, and also because we're a lot more prone to like using it and not being so scared. You know, if we bought a $200,000 Sprinter van, we're not going to take it down some of these roads where you're scraping up against all these, trees and twigs and stuff, just putting scratches all over the van. We do that in ours and we don't really care because it's an older van, you know. But if we had like a brand new Sprinter, we probably would not go to half the places that we do.
do you have a name for your van?
We don't. I'm the
Wow.
worst with it. I know. Poor Andrew has came up with so many names and I just like can't decide. I'm like, I don't know. None of them seem like right. I call Savannah she all the time, so I think I have at least genderized it, and I think I'm always calling it a she. I'm like, oh,
You
she
got her.
did
You
so
got your
good.
van
She did so.
pronouns. There's a start.
Yeah, so I guess now we just have to figure out a name. And Andrew always jokes about like Big Bertha, but like I don't know about I don't love that one. It's more funny than anything, and that's Andrew. He's like just a big jokester, and like I don't know. I'm like I don't know if Big Bertha is really what I want to call the van, but so we're still trying to figure it out. If anybody has ideas, I'm
You
up
could
for
always call her
suggesting.
BB, baby.
Yeah, that's true.
I like
That's
the name
true.
Bertha. Actually, my cousin had a basset hound named Bertha, so I love the name. I think it's cool.
Oh,
So
oh my
yeah.
gosh, that's awesome.
I mean, you might
And
want to
I
drop
would
the big
love
part of
for,
it, but
yeah, exactly. That's what I said. He's hilarious. But yeah,
that
so we do have to figure out a name, especially now that we've finished it and got it to a point where it's functional and it's nice. And when we show people, they're like, wow, this is awesome. Or when we showed people before, when we just had our little folding table, they were like, oh, you doing okay, Felicia? Like, are you sure life is like, this is what you want out of life? And then it's funny when you make it look nice. They're all like, oh, we get it now. And I'm like, yeah,
so
thanks for
visually,
judging me before.
like verbally visual. Walk me through your van. What do you got in there? What is your home like on wheels?
It's very simple. It's a bed and countertops essentially in the most simplest form, but we have like a cedar tongue and groove wood panel ceiling, and then we have like a butcher box countertop, kind of like what this countertop is here. I don't know if you can see it. Um, and I don't know if you put like video in the podcast, but I could give you a clip if you want to show it. But and then we have white cabinets with the butcher block countertops and just your standard bed. The whole back of it is basically a bed. We have a space for a toilet, and our diesel heater, a fridge, a battery system, tons of storage on overhead cabinets.
So you have a toilet in
Wow, I've
your
never had to
van.
describe it without a visual, so I'm sorry. That was probably didn't
Oh,
make
that was
any sense,
cool.
but
I want to know more about the
yeah.
toilet. You have a toilet in there.
Okay, so when I say toilet, I this is always the most interesting topic that everybody asks me
Well,
about,
yeah,
but
come on, it's a
it's important
van.
because and it's something that kept me from being full time for the longest time. So we have a bucket toilet. It's not an actual toilet.
That's what I thought.
The real expensive RVs and camper vans have like a composting toilet or something like that, which I'm sure those are great. However, everyone I know that has them doesn't have good things to say about them, and the the way that you have to empty them is just, we don't even need to get into that. That is gross. And what I do is I only use it for number one. At being a female in the middle of the night, I often have to go 2 or 3 times in the middle of the night. So what we have is just a bucket toilet with wood pellets that they use for like horses and animals. It's basically like heavy duty animal bedding. It's like
Cat
cat
litter.
litter on steroids, but does no, it's so much better than cat litter. When liquid hits it, it turns to sawdust. Absolutely no smell, and then you just toss that in the garbage can. Like it's so simple, no smell. It's $7 for like a 20-pound bag of these wood pellets. So much cheaper, cleaner. I have never in my life. Like I said, we lived in the van for 3 months, and sometimes we went a couple days without being able to throw it away, and not once did either one of us smell or have any uncomfortable issues. So it's really, for me, Andrew it's a lot easier for him, but for me in the middle of the night for number one, it works. And I don't know how far you want to get into it, but it can be used for number two as well. So that is something that you can do. And once I figured out the process of how that works, and that I can have those necessities if it's necessary for emergencies, I was set. And I'm like, this is it. We can do this full time for sure. Because that was the last thing for me. Showers are easier. You can go, and obviously there's bathrooms everywhere, but when you're out in
Right.
the middle of the woods, especially when there's bears, you don't really want to be like squatting in the woods
Yeah.
and have like something come up from behind on you. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
that's what works for us. And sorry, that it might not be what everybody wants to hear, but it's a great system, and it works for us, and it's cheap, and yeah, very simple.
So you say that you get up during the middle of the night and you go to the bathroom several times. My concern would be me getting up in the middle of the night and number two,
Mm-hmm.
like
Yep.
what am I going to do? That's a
That
confined
that
space.
happens.
That
And that's something, depending on if you're traveling with somebody, that will depend on the comfort level
is
of the
right.
person you're with and all of that, because, you got to do what you got to do in certain situations. So there was a few times we were stealth camping and one of us had to go, and you just got to
You got to
make
do
it
it.
work in whatever way that you can. Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
Obviously, when people have bigger vans, they can have like an actual separated bathroom, and that's probably what we would do if in a perfect world, if we had unlimited money supply. But for now, this works for us. But usually, that's only in extreme circumstances. I'm talking like stomach problems where you can't move or go anywhere, because 9 times out of 10, a toilet is very easy to find. Or when you're not in bear country, going outside is also a lot
Okay.
easier.
Yeah. So when you're on the road, how do you sustain? How do you have you saved money up? Are you
Like
taking
financially, you
jobs?
mean?
Yeah. Are you
Yeah.
taking jobs
Okay.
along the
So
way?
a mix of both. So we saved up quite a bit of money to make this trip happen, because my whole thing is I wanted to go on the trip with no jobs on my plate, complete freedom to just kind of soul search and travel and really just enjoy the moment. But at the same time, my social media stuff has started to pick up a little bit, and I've been getting like sponsorships where I can actually just do it on the road. Where, like, it's funny, this coffee cup, like Thermos, or the camera lens company that I shoot with, Tamron, a couple big brands that were able to supplement a lot of my income while I was on the road by doing like sponsorships for them. And a lot of the work that I do is with tourism boards. So I'll do like one big project, and then that will sustain me for a couple months. If I do it that way, where I could also stack them up and do like 2 or 3 in a row, and then I could kind of have a couple months um, more free, where I don't have to take, every job that comes my way. But essentially, we saved up enough to make it work, and then we're lucky enough to get jobs while we were on the road that we were able to do from wherever. So
That's
yeah,
awesome. That's really cool.
yeah,
So you guys are able to
yeah.
get jobs when you're out there. What about like hook up to the internet and stuff like that? When you're parked outside of houses in Venice, what do you do?
Yeah. Yeah. So we would go to coffee shops when I would need to actually upload stuff. And then I have an AT&T hotspot. I don't think it's unlimited, but I've never been cut off. It just starts to get really slow after a certain time. But for me, usually what I would do is do all my editing in Lightroom. The video and photo editing can all be done mostly without Wi-Fi. But then when I go to submit the project or submit it to the brand or whatever, we'll have to go to a coffee shop so I can upload everything, send out the emails and all of that. But if once we get back in the van again full time for like a couple months, we might invest in Starlink, because a lot of our friends had it while we were on the road, and man, what a luxury! You can even get it when you have no service.
Oh,
You can be in the middle
nice.
of nowhere and get internet and be able to do your job without having to leave. So it was a big pain in the butt, but I mean, we were able to make it work. It was more when we were in super remote areas that it became more of an issue, because you would think you'd have enough service and then you'd start to upload stuff and it would start failing, and it makes it a little more complicated. But for most of what I had to do, I had a clear, deadline, and I gave myself enough time that we were able to make it work beforehand
Do you have a
without
little
having to rush.
workspace?
Only once was I like, oh my gosh, I have to submit this in 5 minutes, or it's going to be late, and we couldn't get like those Starbucks or the Wi-Fi at Starbucks was down, and it's like, but that's all part of being on the road. So we were able to figure it out, and it was no problem. But I would say getting Starlink would be a huge help.
Do you have a dedicated workspace in the van?
Just
Like
really on the bed. On the bed,
the
I have
bed?
two spots. Yep, because like I said, the most of it is the bed, because we prioritize. A lot of people make it to where you can, transform the bed into a table or a
Hmm.
workspace, but everyone we know that has those just leaves it as a bed 24/7, and their bed's uncomfortable because it's modular, and they're like, we wish we would have just done a regular bed. We never make it a table, because 9 times out of 10, unless I'm spending the day working and we're spending it in a city in a parking lot, we're not in the van until the end of the night, once it's dark, and we're just going in there to sleep. But on the days that I am working, I either sit, we have a swivel seat, so the passenger seat swivels, and then there's a
Nice.
table or like a countertop right there that I can sit on, or I just sit in the back of the bed and just like I would, just right in my lap like I would at home. And a lot of times now I finally got a new MacBook where I can see when I'm outside. So I did a lot of editing on this last trip, just sitting by the fire outside, like at night before
Nice.
the bugs came out and stuff. So pretty much anywhere I can do it. But a lot of the major work when we do need internet does happen at like coffee shops or libraries. Also, we realized that towards the end of the trip, they're completely free. So you don't have to go and buy a
Mm.
coffee. You can just go hang out at the library. And even sometimes I found in their parking lots, you can just chill in the van and do what you need to and move on. And even small towns have libraries. Not every small town has like a coffee shop or a Starbucks. So,
Right on. So you found the little tricks along the way that you need to do. Who does most of the
oh, for
driving?
sure.
Do you?
I do all the driving. Um, Only because I'm kind of a control freak when it comes to that. In 2029, I have like, and I don't mean to, because PTSD is a super serious thing, but I got in a car accident in 2019
Hmm.
in Detroit. I was driving down like a side street, and I was just literally going like 20 miles an hour, and out of nowhere, someone was ripping down one of the side streets going like 80, and they hit me like this space. I don't know if you can see,
Mm,
and
like a
they flew
T-bone.
right into a tree head first, and like it was like crazy. And so my point is, I have like PTSD from that, and I feel like I always have to be in control when I'm driving, which is not ideal, because a lot of times like I was driving 14, 15 hours a day, and that's not sustainable for somebody. So the next day I was completely wrecked when Andrew is perfectly capable of driving. um, However, the way we built our van, we built it to make the counters so far up that he can't really fit in the driver's seat anymore, because he's so much taller than me. He'd have to move the
Mm.
seat back to be able to comfortably drive long distances. He can do it for a small distance if he has to, when we're trading vehicles or getting from point A to point B. But I'm definitely way more comfortable driving it. And also, he's not super comfortable driving a huge vehicle. But
Okay.
that's because our whole relationship, anytime we're together, I drive, just because I'm kind of a control freak like that. I hate flying where I feel like I'm not in control. I have to have an escape route. Like I have to be able to leave if I need to. And I don't mind that. I actually love that I do all the driving. It's surprising. I haven't got a lot of people I see on YouTube a lot when the woman's driving in the van, couple, on YouTube. I don't know what I'm trying to say. With van life YouTubers, when the woman is driving, you often see a lot of comments about that. Like, why is the woman driving? Why does she do all the driving? And it's like, people are so crazy. Like, I don't know. I'm lucky we haven't gotten that, but for the people that are wondering, that's why. I just like to be in control when it comes to that kind of stuff, like driving.
I hate
Um,
driving, so you could drive anytime you want. You can drive the whole
oh,
way.
see, and exactly. That's kind of like how Andrew is. So I absolutely love it. I mean, the moment I got my license when I turned 16 was like the day my life changed forever, and I had like true freedom. And not to say that I had anything to like escape from, but being able to have your own vehicle that you can just get around whenever was like life changing for me. So I will always very, very much so appreciate the privilege of driving, because I know that it is a privilege and not everybody can. you know, not everybody loves to do it, and I absolutely love it. I mean, if there was a way to be like a truck driver, but you could also just like travel and take your time, that's what I would do if I wasn't a photographer.
No deadlines.
Absolutely. Just drive around and see the country. What's
Yeah.
that?
I said no deadlines.
Yeah.
You'd be good.
Oh,
There
exactly.
you go.
Exactly.
You could always get a job driving a bus, and you'd have stops. You could do that. That'd be cool. See me,
Excuse me.
I want to sleep. If somebody's driving, I want to sleep. I don't want anything to do with
Yep.
it. So that works. You mentioned before that you
I
played
hear ya.
hockey. What kind of hockey?
I did. I played first. I started with roller hockey, and then once I got older, I got put into ice hockey and just women's AAA, like 18 and under. I stopped right when I turned 18. It got pretty serious. It was either you were going to play college hockey or there was like you were not going to play anymore. And playing college hockey, I really wanted to do it. However, there's not a lot of it's crazy how things worked out because at the time I thought there's really not a WHL, so there's no Women's National Hockey League. So in reality, the only way to monetize or make a career sustainable being an athlete in women's hockey is to be an Olympian and as well as be like a coach and have endorsements in that respect. And I just didn't see that as like a sustainable thing. But that's why I say it's funny because now my job is that, but as a photographer instead of an
Right.
athlete. Like I pretty much do the same thing with like sponsorships and endorsements and stuff and it's just funny how it works out, but sadly I didn't end up playing college hockey and that's kind of when that passion not died, but I stopped playing and just kind of fell out of it because I'm very thankful that I had it though, because I don't know what I would have done my entire teenage years if I didn't have hockey. I probably would have been, who knows where I would have ended up, let's just say that.
It kept you say. It kept you, what do they say?
It kept my head on
It
straight
kept you
for sure.
honest. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh
Head on
yeah.
straight, kept
Yep.
you
Yep.
honest. Did you miss it?
Exactly.
Did you ever play anymore?
Oh, absolutely. We play pond hockey all the time. We'll go skating. There's like a place that makes a pond not too far from us here at my mom's house. So when we're home, we'll go there. But I don't play organized at all. I haven't in over like 10 or 15 years, which is super sad to say. But yeah, we skate all the time and we play pond hockey and stuff and just have fun with it. But nothing organized or serious anytime
I forgot.
recently, at least.
Michigan, nice and cold for a pond hockey. You
Oh
know,
yeah, yep,
Here in Philly, you
yeah.
don't want to
We're
walk on the ice.
yeah.
No.
That's crazy because you guys aren't even that far away from us that for the like climate to be that different, you know?
I think for you, it's because the lake. Like,
Yeah. Oh,
there's
absolutely.
huge wind, like that come off the lake. I've,
The lake
I've been
effect
there
snow
in
is real.
September and it was cold. You
Yeah,
know?
exactly. Yep, yep.
I don't put jeans on here till like November. There, I was like jeans, shirt,
Yeah.
jacket.
And we get snow in April too. That's very common here, especially in the Upper Peninsula. Like right now, at the very top of Michigan, which when I keep saying Upper Peninsula, it's called Copper Harbor is the actual town up there. It's like as close as you can get to being as north on Lake Superior before you get to Canada. And it's like 60 degrees there right now today. Like high of 60. And it's 84 here in Detroit.
Whoa, that's total different.
Yeah, so
So weird.
exactly. So you're right. I mean, it's just being north, being in Lake Superior is like the largest freshwater body of water in the world in terms of volume, not depth. But so yeah, I mean, the lake effect weather is crazy up here for sure.
I've been a long time fan of your photography since we've met. Your photography
Oh,
is amazing, and I'm not just saying that because we're sitting here talking.
thank you. I appreciate that.
Oh no, I mean, thank you. I mean, the colors, the tones, just the images themselves. You do a lot of scenic images. You do a lot of landscape. You do a lot of, So to hear you say that you do weddings and things like that, you were doing weddings. I've never seen you shoot
Yeah,
like a portrait or
I
people.
I know. I know. It's because I don't love doing it. Like, and let's be honest, weddings are stressful. If it wasn't for the stress level, I would do them all the time, you know? I do them mostly for people that I know, and I'm trying to also like kind of brand myself as more of like an outdoor photographer versus like your standard like traditional church weddings, just because those are so much more stressful. And it's not because of the client or anything. It's just, it's the most important day in most people's lives is their wedding day. And I'm responsible for capturing it. And there's all these technical things that could go wrong. And I'm like the most anxious person ever. So until I get home and back up those photos, I am literally not thinking about anything else. I'm like, got to make sure the SD card is safe. Got to make sure the SD card is safe. Like, it's just too stressful. So I don't do them anymore, really, unless it's like a good friend that I know will have a good time. And but it supplemented most of my income, I would say, for the first 4 to 5 years. I'd say 60 to 70% of my income was coming from weddings, and that was mostly just through word of mouth from my previous job. It was a huge company in Detroit where a lot of my friends worked, and they were all that age where they were getting married, having kids. So it kind of worked out perfectly for me in that respect. And I
Good way
just
to
kind of moved
monetize
on
on
from it. I
that.
realized, yeah, exactly. No, and weddings are also great money too, but it's a lot of work. It's an entire full day of shooting and then like a week of editing afterwards. So, I mean, I take like 5,000 pictures at a wedding, and have to edit and cull through all of those is tough, but it's definitely rewarding. That's something also about it that a lot of people don't talk about, is like, and this is an unfortunate part of it being rewarding, but when you see a photo that you've taken of their family member that recently passed away, and it's like I remember being like, this is such a cool moment, I have to capture it, and then you see it being used for something so important, and it might be the last photo that's ever captured of that person. It's like, man, that's where I'm like, oh, I love doing it for those types of reasons. But it can definitely be stressful, and I just kind of like moved on from it in terms of like the type of jobs that I was doing and where I want to shift my business, because it's definitely very stressful, but it's also very rewarding. So
So, what way did you
that's
shift your
probably why I don't
business?
show it a lot. I just kind of figured out what I liked doing the most, which is working with tourism boards and like creating photo and can't even talk today. Sorry,
It's
photo
okay.
and video assets for them. So essentially, going to, like, we just went to Ohio, which is funny. Like a spot near Toledo, actually, it's called Maumee Bay State Park. And the tourism board sent us out there with the Ohio DNR, and we got to do like photo and video stuff. I did some drone stuff for them, and we made a blog post, and basically just creating photo and video assets for the tourism boards to use for like marketing, billboards, as pretty much whatever they need. And that's pretty much what I've been doing full time since like COVID. And I mean, everything else is just kind of supplementary, but that's what I've been focusing on the most. Like, for instance, on my website, when I say I kind of shifted things, I used to say I did family photos, product photography. Like, I was a jack of all trades. Pretty much anything photography, I will do it. That was how I was branding myself. And then I realized that if I want to actually make it into a business, I need to kind of specialize in something. And I kind of found not a gap in the market, but I felt like I didn't see a lot of travel creators in Michigan, and the stuff that they did have the tourism boards. It was all kind of like older, before like drones became a thing, and like the digital, just the technology got better. And I realized, there's like a lot of stuff that, I find holes in kind of what the tourism boards have in terms of content, and realize they could totally benefit from like some updated, fresh content. And I've been lucky enough where they just kind of started reaching out to me based on the work I was already making. Because like when we go somewhere, I usually film a YouTube video, make a blog post, and have like a 40 to 50 image photo gallery from it. And I didn't realize it, but I just started putting that out just for myself, like, 3 days in Marquette, Michigan on YouTube. And then 2 months later, the tourism board reached out and was like, hey, we saw your video. We'd love for you to come back in the winter and like set you up with an itinerary and get you some like snowmobiles and stuff like that. And I was like, okay, yeah, that sounds great. And then I realized that's where I excel the most. Like, I don't have to, it doesn't feel like work when I'm doing things like that. Like, I can just go and show off a new place. That's kind of what I feel like I was born to do, versus like shooting a wedding is a lot more stressful and not as me, I would say. So that's kind of, once I realized that and that there was a need for that, I kept doing jobs. And after the last one, then I'd get, oh, now I'm in talks with a couple other states, actually, which is really, really cool. So I was able to kind of started with the up north towns in Michigan, and then once people started to see that's what I do, I keep getting random emails. So it's crazy how like it works out when you just kind of put out the work that you want to do to the world, and it just like serendipitously kind of makes it happen and makes it all work out for you.
It's what I call pursuing your passion. When you
Yeah,
have a passion
exactly.
towards it, you don't have a passion towards shooting weddings. It's money in the pocket. It pays the bills
Exactly.
or
Yeah.
some bills.
Hmm.
When you have a
Yeah, for
passion
sure.
for what you're doing, it's not like you're not working, but you're
Yeah.
getting paid
Oh
anyway.
yeah.
So it
Yep.
works. It really does.
Yep.
What was the coolest place you and Andrew have visited in the van or went to or camped out in?
Hmm.
Or your favorite? Were there a
I
lot?
would say probably we had this spot in Oregon. It was like right near Cannon Beach in like in the mountains. And it wasn't the most scenic spot by any means, but it was in the mountains and it was great, but it was kind of like our home for 4 or 5 days. We were at the point on the trip where I was like mentally kind of burnt out and I had a lot of work that I had to finish and I was just not necessarily in the best mental headspace. And I remember just finding that spot and we just stayed there for like 4 or 5 days and we just roamed the area and it was kind of like we were living there. And like I said, that was right outside of Cannon Beach, Oregon. But probably the most memorable spot that we were is in California. We went in St. Lucas Obispo. I don't know if I'm saying that properly or if you're familiar with the area
San
at
Luis
all. I
Obispo
like
down in
Santa.
Orange County?
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. Yep.
yeah. Right outside of
We
San
were in the mountains
Clemente.
just, yeah, exactly. Yep. We were in the mountains out there, just like inland a bit from the coast, and we found like an epic spot. And we woke up to like the most crazy sunrise cloud inversion that I've ever seen, where like the clouds come over the mountain, and like it was insane. And that's probably the most memorable because it was like a movie scene where you're just like, oh, like a photographer is like running around like a chicken with their head cut off because it's like a once in a lifetime opportunity to get to see something like that. So that was probably the most memorable. And in terms of cities, we went to San Francisco, and I think that was my favorite city we visited on the trip. And we went to like 10 or 12 different cities, but we spent the night there and it was incredible. It was very van friendly. There was a lot of places to overnight park for free, which I was
Oh,
really
yeah.
shocked about.
San Francisco is known for that. They're known for a transient population that come in and sleep in their vans, and usually
Yep.
like on the other side of like San
Yep.
Fran,
The
opposite
bridge.
Telegraph Hill by
Yep.
the bridge, and it's a very
Exactly. Yep.
transient because it's welcoming. It's Northern
Yep.
California. People are just sort of
Yep.
chill, so that's cool.
Absolutely. And all the people that we met there were great. It reminded me of Detroit in a way. Just saw something literally on Twitter yesterday where people are saying San Francisco is the new Detroit now because they're having a tough time with like the office, or I don't know how to describe it, but the office spaces there are all going out of business and nobody wants to be in the city because there's a lot of like, we did see a lot of smash and grabs though. I will say like Andrew and I took turns getting out of the van because our entire life was in there. So I was not taking chances with leaving the van alone. And
Hmm.
that's definitely unfortunate, but I would say it's no different than any other big city besides the fact that it might not be as policed in San Francisco. Like we didn't see much police. We just saw the people like, and when they go up to the window, they literally touch it with their hand and it breaks. They put like glass on their finger to where it just like can't. It happens so fast that it's crazy. And that was about the only thing that I didn't like about it. But I mean, my car got broken into Detroit multiple times as well. So it happens in every city, and you just kind of have to be smart about it. But we absolutely love San Francisco. The vibes there were like incredible, and it really did remind me of Detroit in so many ways with like the old buildings, but just the scenery and like the mountains and the bridge and the fog and the ocean. It's just like incredible, literally.
It is. It's a beautiful area. Like I said, Northern Cal is beautiful. I'm envious that you have to see, Cannon Beach. The
Oh yeah.
closing scene of Goonies. Oh my gosh, you got to be on that beach. See that beach. That's
Yeah,
very
I
cool.
know. Yep. We got to cross off a lot of bucket list places, and we also kind of unfortunately missed out on a lot of bucket list places because of the weather. I was in such a rush to go that we left in like mid March, and most of the mountain stuff in like the Cascades and Glacier and the Rocky Mountains was all still too snowy for us to get up to. So we kind of just hung around the coast. We went all the way up the California coast, Washington, Oregon, and then that's when we started to kind of make our way back. Was once we got out of Washington into Montana. We went to Yellowstone, which was like our last big stop, and we kind of sent it home from there. But it was absolutely incredible, and I already can't wait to go back. We didn't do much planning for this trip. We kind of just winged it, and I had an idea of the places that I want to go, but we didn't do a lot of research on hiking and stuff, and we probably could have planned it a little better. And I think next time we will probably plan a little bit better. But it was so nice to just wake up in the morning and be like, do we want to go today or not? Like, and everybody kept asking me, where are you going to be? When are you going to be on this date? I'm like, I have no idea. I can't tell you. I don't know what I'm doing tomorrow, you
That's
know?
awesome, though.
And as much as it's a double-edged sword though. I just like the freedom of having your own business and having to have the self-discipline to work every day when no one's really telling you have to. You also have to make decisions on the road that are difficult. Like, should we stay here through bad weather and wait it out, or should we just continue moving on and skip this incredible national park that we wanted to see? You know, and we had to make that decision with Glacier in Montana. There was a lot of wildfire smoke up there, and it was so bad that we wouldn't have been able to see anything or do any hiking. So we went south from there to Yellowstone, and you know, stuff like that happens, but it's all part of being on the road.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, I'm envious of this whole thing because, I would love to do that. I would love to be able to just pick up and go, be able to see things. Were you able to travel prior to this? Did you travel a lot, or is this one of your first excursions in traveling?
We did travel quite a bit, but never for more than like 2 weeks. The longest trip that we had ever done was like a 2.5 week trip in the Upper Peninsula when we first got the van in 2021. But never for, and that was always my biggest like dream, was to have months on months like of just freedom and time to just really like just explore again without having any deadlines of where we had to be or anything like that. And we had 3 full months of that before the job back home got too good. And I'm like, all right, this is incredible, but we have some really cool opportunities at home that will then in turn help us get back on the road. So we came home and we made some big upgrades to the van since being home too. We got like a roof cargo storage thing, and we just have a lot more room. We have two paddle boards now instead of one paddle board, one kayak. Starting to get more fun adventure things to be able to bring with us, because that's one thing we noticed is we'd get to an awesome camp spot, but then we wish we had bikes or something that we could go take out and explore a little bit more. So that's something we're working on, is
Oh, so you
to
have toys for
attach
the
a little
road.
bit some toys. Oh yeah, exactly. Yep,
Okay, that's cool.
for
So it's not
sure.
just like, okay, I'm gonna take some pictures and
Absolutely.
fly my drone and go back and edit. You get to go out and explore. That's
Oh
sick.
yeah, yeah.
That's sick.
Definitely.
And plus, having
Yep.
photography under your belt, like you explore and bring that passion into it, it's like a win-win. That's
Yep,
amazing.
exactly. And it's a good way to take a break when there are days spent just sitting in front of the computer. It's so nice that you don't have to go very far. Like we're here when we're in Metro Detroit, like last night we had to drive almost 20 minutes to get to Belle Isle to get to somewhere that we'd want to like go and relax and take pictures in the city, because it's really the only nature spot that's in the city. But yeah, it's just nice to have the option of being able to just pick up and go whenever we want or stay whenever we want. And I can work, I can do everything I need to in the van besides take a shower, which is very easy to find. So yeah, it's been incredible. And literally, it's been a dream come true. It's been something that I never thought would happen. And I was just, again, talking to my friend last night saying it's kind of weird how this works out, because like I never thought this trip was going to happen. I kept thinking something kept happening to prevent us from going. And once we finally did it and we made it back and everything, we were safe and everything worked out, I was like, wow, like it's like the first, kind of like quitting my job. When you accomplish a dream, it's this bitter sweet feeling where it's like, now what do we do? Like, now what is my goal? And that's when I said that my goal is to give us a home base so that we can continue to do this whenever we want and always have a place to come back where we don't have to worry about moving every year or rent increases or crazy neighbors or anything like that, because apartment life is not for me anymore. We learned that. So
Nice.
that's our kind of next goal, is to figure out how we can sustainably stay on the road as long as possible, but also get ourselves a home base and figure out where. We don't know where we want to live. I don't really want to live in the city. If we were going to buy a house, I'd want it to be somewhere on Lake Michigan, up north. And the prices are just going up and up, and so are interest rates. So we'll see what happens with the housing market over this next year and see how the business does. And for now, we're pretty content having a little home on wheels that we can just take wherever we want. And once we find a place that we want to live, hopefully the stars will align and my taxes will be set up so that we can do it.
Nice. This has been amazing. I've learned a lot. You're a hustler. You hustle. You definitely hustle, and I love
Oh,
that.
thank you.
That's amazing.
I
So, if
appreciate that.
people want to watch your YouTube and find out about van life and how you convert this van, what's your
Yeah.
YouTube channel?
Felicia Fullwood, just my name. I try to keep it simple.
Real simple. So you branded
And
yourself well. Felicia Fullwood on
yeah, I mean,
YouTube, on
yep,
Instagram.
Instagram, yep. That's really
Felicia,
the only two
is
that
there
I
an
use right
underscore
now.
in
There is
Instagram?
an underscore on Instagram,
Okay.
Felicia underscore Fullwood. Yep. It should
Okay.
come up if you type in like Felicia, because I feel like that's one thing. There's not a lot of Felicias in the world, so that
Well,
is
the
one
funny
thing
thing is,
that's nice.
I didn't realize it was an underscore until I was typing it in the one day, and I was like, "Oh, she's an underscore." So if you type in
If
Felicia
someone
Fullwood,
has the Felicia,
like your name, it'll come
yep,
up.
yep, exactly. One day, hopefully, I can get the real Felicia Fullwood handle, but it served me this far with the underscore, so I don't mind.
It works.
But yeah,
It works.
basically Instagram and YouTube is where I do most of the style. I also have a blog where I post like more photos and stuff like that. But Instagram and YouTube is primarily where I spend most of my time. And I haven't posted on YouTube in 7 months, but I have like 5 videos that I'm in the middle of editing, and those should be coming out very soon. And that's
Good.
where I've had the most fun on social media is through YouTube. So that's
Nice.
where I'm trying to spend my most of my time. But Instagram is also a big part of the business as well.
It's out there. And I'll tell you, so everybody, make sure you go over and you follow Felicia on Instagram, Felicia underscore Fullwood. On YouTube, Felicia Fullwood. Subscribe to her
Mm-hmm.
channel, follow it. I love what you're doing with the van. I love what you and Andrew are doing. You both are amazing photographers. I love this
Oh, thank
connection.
you so much.
Thank you. This actually,
Of
to be able to
course.
sit and talk to you for the first time in 7 years and not just like
I
DM and
know.
pictures, this has been a pleasure.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Exactly. Oh, of course. Thank you so much for having me. And maybe one time when we're in the van passing through, we can stop in Philly and see what you guys are doing there. Because again, I know I said this before the podcast, but huge shout out to you for what you're doing in Philly. Honestly, you are doing the work of millions of people like. I wish I could do what you're doing, and like with the amount of just yeah, what you're doing is incredible, and all the respect to you, and I hope you guys continue to grow because you seem to be doing incredible. I'm very impressed with your whole setup here, and I'm so stoked to see what you guys do in the future.
Wow, you just brought tears to my eyes, and that doesn't happen often. So
Oh,
I
oh my God,
welcome you
Britt.
and
Well, thank
Andrew
you.
in Philly
Yeah,
anytime, and you got a bed to sleep in because you can stay at my place. I got an extra room. You're more
awesome.
than welcome.
Oh,
Just got to bunk with the
thank
dogs
you
and
so
cats.
much.
So
Oh, we love both, so we'll for
nice.
sure take you up on that.
Nice. Nice. Well, thank you. Thanks for joining me. Tell Andrew next time we'll get him on. And
Yeah, definitely.
I want you to revisit. Let's do this in a few
For
more
sure.
months and see where you're at. So
I would love to.
awesome.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much again for having me and giving me this platform. I appreciate it. And I'm stoked to see when it comes out.
Me too. Me too. Felicia, thank you. And everybody else out there, make sure you're following Felicia Fullwood. She's amazing. Her photography is awesome. And as you just got to know, she's awesome. So remember, whatever it is you stand for, be a voice. This is Brit Carpenter on Usula Media. Have a great rest of your day.